Satnam, Neo-Natives. This is MC Pan, Apocalyptic Rhymes Records. Just sitting outside in nature. It's a beautiful day. The dog's panting over there, looking at me like, "What are you doing? Why are you recording that video?" And all I gotta say is, shit, I don't know. But it was fun though. So what are we going to talk about today? I was thinking about something that's been on my mind. So I wanted to talk to you guys about how the Nilotic became MC Pan. Now, for some of you who are watching, you might not know that my previous manifestation was called Nilotic, and now I go by MC Pan. But back when I went by Nilotic, I was pretty much the polar opposite of who I am now and what I stand for now. So back when I was Nilotic, I was like within the shadows, within the darkness, as opposed to now I'm in the light and I have a positive message and I just want to spread love and good vibes and just inspire people to create and just make the world a better place, you know? But I wasn't always like that. I used to just have all this hate in my heart, and, you know, it just developed from going through all of these dark periods in my life and depressions and, you know, all these things that happened to me when I was younger. I don't really want to get into all that, you know, but what we're really focused on right now is the transformation between the two incarnations, you know, the incarnation of Nilotic metamorphosing, if that's even a word, into the entity which I call MC Pan, which you see before you now. But MC Pan doesn't just consist of me, it consists of me and the entire universe. We are Pan. I was Nilotic, but we are Pan. Okay? So when I was operating as Nilotic, I was operating as this fractured personality, right? I developed this thing called the 7 synthesis chart, right? Which was the 7 personalities that made up the Nilotic. Basically the core 2, though, of Nilotic, because the Nilotic was a spiritual being created out of the Nile River, which is both male and female in one body. And Jacob Steep was the male part, Rosa McGee was the female part. And Jacob Steep, this was a character actually that I discovered in the book Sacrament by Clive Barker, and it just resonated with me so hard that I was like, this is me, like this is who I am. So I just like adopted that and became it. Like I expanded upon it, but the core elements I took onto myself. Like I even went by the name Jacob Steep for several years. And if any of you know, go by different names, spiritual name, you know, stage name or anything, what name that people call you, that vibration starts to resonate in your reality and changes, you know, your world and your universe based on the vibration of that name that you have given yourself, you know, or a name that somebody else has given you. Whatever you choose for other people to call you and you call yourself defines your reality in a different way. See, if I've experienced this because I've gone by several different names throughout my life, and each period of time that I've gone by different names, I've had completely different experiences in my reality depending on which name that I choose to go by. So when I was going by Jacob Steve, who calls himself the killer of last things, which means that he believes that his way of changing the world is by killing off the last of endangered species. And so he's changing the world through death, one death at a time. So that's how I like envision myself, is that I just wanted to bring destruction and death and darkness and confusion and disarray and all of this negative shit, you know, brought out from the shadows, and just quit your digging. Aspen, no digging. My dog is digging over there. Anyway, go on with what I was saying. I was just this entity from the darkness, you know, and I don't even remember. I'm trying to remember what the other ones in the Seven Synthesis were. We had Jacob Steet, Rose McGee, Edie Warhol, Adolph Crowley, Alice, Benevolent, and there was one, Priest Crow. Yeah. Priest Crow. Cornelius Trauman. Right. I'd forgotten about Cornelius Trauman. But anyway, that's a story for another time. But, so what really started my process of my metamorphosis was that awakening experience that I talked to you guys about in the other video, you know, where I had that Kundalini freak out, and then the two opposing forces were fighting within me, and I felt like I had to get to the water. Boom, boom, boom. Swam in the water. Bam, don't remember anything. Woke up, you know, walking on the road or whatever. Might have slipped into a different dimension. I don't even know. Anyway, that was what really started it, you know, right after I finished completing my album Pornographic Childhood. This is when I was back in Rhode Island, when I was like deep within. Hold on a second. Hey, no. Oh. Dog's funny. Thought she had a dead bird or something, but it actually turned out to be like a root. Anyway, so this was when I was like really enmeshed in being Nilotic, you know, this dark entity, who I really believed that I was like literally the Antichrist who was going to bring about the apocalypse, like the destruction of the entire creation. Yeah, how crazy is that? Anyway, so, you know, I released my album Emotional Ghetto, where I was in like the worst state of like depression and pain and, you know, just a dark place. And then I think Nat Art was before that, but anyway, the Pornographic Childhood was after that, and Threshold, and then Pornographic Childhood. Anyway, I had that awakening experience where, you know, the light and the darkness were fighting within me, and ultimately the light won out. I mean, as you can see, I'm living proof just by sitting here talking to you. But the metamorphosis wasn't complete at that point. Not yet. See, I still, after that was when I discovered, once I was out of the mental hospital and everything, this is when I discovered the Occupy movement. And then being part of Occupy just expanded my awareness that much more, and just like opened my eyes to all these different issues that were going on in the world, you know, outside of my own scope of, you know, my own pain, you know, feeling, you know, selfish narcissist that I am, you know. So that was what continued the metamorphosis, the Occupy movement, and being around those, it kind of, you know, awakened people who were trying to bring about some kind of positive change within the world, you know. Be that change that you wish to see in the world. And that really resonated with me. That really stuck with me and planted that seed, you know. After I was done, after Occupy was, you know, over where I was in Providence, Rhode Island, I ended up going back to Chicago for a year, a little over a year, year and a half maybe. Anyway, I was still Nilotic at that point. I put out another album called Psychoactive, which was like, you can tell if you listen to it, it's like transitioning between checking to see how much time I got left on this thing. So Psychoactive was like transitioning between you know, the dark and the light. Like, you could tell that it was still like influenced by the dark stuff, you know, like I had dark imagery and, you know, demons and whatnot, but also there was like that tinge of like spirit and like fairies and like rainbows and like hope, you know what I mean? Psychoactive, like it was about drugs, but like psychedelic drugs that could like expand your awareness and open your third eye and your mind. So that was like the first real album as Nilotic that I started transitioning into becoming Emcee Pan. And you can really tell it on that album, you know. The first song is called Dreaming of Water, you know, and it's like I wrote that whole album out in the woods, like in nature, like next to a stream, conversing with the fairies, you know. So you could totally tell it from that album is, you know, it was starting. And then I put out after that the Anti-Swag EP, you know. It was becoming a little bit more conscious, you know, and spiritual, and you know, and I had more spiritual songs like I and I, you know. It was like, I am just me and you, I am just me and you, I am. So that's when I started realizing everything was one and everything was just inextricably connected. But the unifying force that held everything together wasn't hate, it was love. And this is what I was starting to realize. And then after Anti-Swag, I started working on a trilogy, a triptych, that I actually never was able to finish because I lost all of my possessions and all my work that I had on all three albums, right? It was called the Metamorphosis Triptych. The first one was called Fallen Flesh. Second one was called Locked Up. And the third one was called The Alchemy of Desire. The Alchemy of Desire and the Reverence for Sacred Geometry in the Sanctuary of All Possible Worlds. That was the title that I came up with for that one. So as you can see, it was meant to show my my transformation from the dark, the fallen nature to transcendence. Okay? But I ended up going on this spiritual quest west, you know, to California. And that's when I had my hippie adventures, and I found the Gem and Jam, and then discovered crystals and the Rainbow Gathering, and that's a story for a whole nother time. But anyway, during this process I ended up losing everything, right? But I was still able to like salvage a few like songs from that period. Like, I was able to salvage 9 songs from the period that I was working on the triptych, and I released it as an underground mixtape called the L Test, right? Since I was going through this whole phase of like hallucinogenics and mushrooms, LSD and DMT and all these things, right? But it was also a play on words, you know. It was the L test, meaning the acid test, but it was also L meaning love, like it was the love test, to see if people will respond more to me, you know, as a loving person rather than a hateful person, you know. And so the L test was the last one that I released under the name Nilotic, you know. And the last song that's on it is called Metamorphosis. And really, that one song explains it all. Like, that song explains my entire transformation from the darkness to the light. The Guru. The darkness into the light. The Guru. Wahe Guru. Anyway, so, and then I became Emcee Pan, you know, because, like I said before, Nilotic was that fractured personality. Well, there's a spider on my camera. Oh, it was an ant. Anyway, so, 1 second. Cool. We got 11 minutes left until the... See, I can only record like 29-minute clips on this thing. So anyway. So yeah, when I was Nilotic, I was that fractured personality like I was saying. And Pan means all-inclusive. Like, the prefix pan, you know, Pangea, pan ultimate, you know, whatever you want, whatever pan word you think of, pansexual, whatever. Pan means all inclusive. So during this process of transforming and moving west and having all these experiences, right, I was integrating all of these personalities that were part of the Nilotic into one whole, non-fractured being, you know? So I just felt like Pan was the most appropriate, you know, name. It just means all, you know? Like, I felt before... Like, I've had experiences where I feel like I'm having every experience at once, right? I know that sounds weird, but, like, I really feel like I am not just me. Like, I am you and me. Or, like, I am you and I don't even exist. Wrap your head around that one. God, fuck yeah. Anyway, so yeah, Pan just means all inclusive, everything all together. I call Pan the polysolar synthesis. So it's a synthesis of all souls and all of creation and all of the universe, like condensed into one thing. Like, it's crazy to think about, but that's really what Emcee Pan means to me. It just means all. Like, you could, you know, all. Like, I've had so many different experiences, and like, I felt like I relate to everything. That just the way for me to become whole was to integrate all aspects of what I perceive and experience within this creation. Okay? So the first album that I put out as MC Pan was Bisolar. People think that it's a play on words for bisexual, when it's really not. It's a play on words for bipolar instead of bipolar, because I was diagnosed bipolar, which I don't believe in those labels and stuff. I believe it's just awakening to the next level of consciousness. Anyway, bisolar to me means two suns. Like, beings who live on planets with two suns have two hearts. And also, in the show Doctor Who, the entities that have two hearts are Time Lords. Like, Doctor Who has two hearts. He's a Time Lord, right? So all of these things I was, like, playing with. Like, I was just having fun with it, you know? It was inspired by my, my experiences at the mental hospital, but also, you know, I put my own spin on it, my own celestial spin on it. You know, it was like the, you know, recognizing duality, but also transcending that duality. That's what the whole album's about, you know. And then after Bisolar, I put out David under MC Pan, which is, you know, my given name is David. And that just goes deeper into it. Like, I'm not even going to get into it right now, but you guys can listen to it. And that whole album was just, you know, detailing my whole experience on the road and the Rainbow Gathering and, you know, just meeting family and the connection of love and synchronicity, and also crazy spiritual experiences and enlightening experiences that I had during the past, you know, several years and stuff into that album, and ultimately it goes through that into transcendence, transcending duality, and that's just my experience. And right now I'm working on my new MC Pan album called Rapstronaut. I'm announcing it to you guys right now. Rapstronaut. Okay? And it's all, the imagery is inspired by my my practice of Kundalini yoga and just diving deeper into my own essence and my own being, diving deep within to dive deep out into the atmosphere, into the universe, into the center of it all, to everything, to the source, to the Ekongkar, vibrate out and then vibrate back forever within the Akashic record. Satnam Neo Natives. This is MC Pan. God fuck yeah. I love y'all.